peace and a path to prosperity, I believe that America's best days can still be ahead, and I want to lead us forward. Join me now in the Reid Revolution.
Hey, good morning. Tuesday morning, second episode of the Reid Revolution. Very glad to be with you. We made it through yesterday. I appreciate everybody who tuned in live at 10 o'clock and then who, you get these little monitors of when people are watching the show because you don't have to watch it live. And last night, I don't know, everybody puts the kids to bed or they get done with whatever they're doing in the evening, and then they watch the show after 11 o'clock last night. So there's some late night folks who were, bouncing around on the internet who decided to make us a part of what they were doing last night. And I'm appreciative of that, and hope that we will continue to grow with folks who will give us an hour. Now, producer Dan, who you recall from my time at WRVA, is producing this show too. And one of the awful things that producer Dan had to deal with at the radio station is I do have this tendency to talk on for a little while. So we budget in, so, okay, there's 6 minutes for this segment, 8 minutes for this segment. And then inevitably at the radio station, I would be kind of passionate about something. And then we'd look up, it'd be 12 minutes for the first segment and something's got to go, because at the radio station, you had 10,000 commercials that we had to run. I'm not knocking it because we were making money there. And, the way you make the money is to run the commercials. It's capitalism at its finest. Unfortunately, I don't have to worry about the commercials, at least not yet, right here. But I still ran on yesterday. So we went over 14 and a half minutes yesterday, plus our regular 1 hour schedule. So I'm going to try to be a little more disciplined today and keep us on time, because we've got a lot to talk about today. And then I've got a couple of folks that I'm going to talk to about tomorrow's program, which I think will be really interesting. I don't want to spill the beans yet because, I don't want to jinx it and say that I've got somebody special coming on tomorrow and then find out that it didn't work out. But anyway, can I begin this morning by saying something positive about a Democrat? I mean, really and truly. Don't expect this to happen very often. I don't think that it's going to occur very often. But the governor-elect, Abigail Spanberger, with whom I disagree on a tremendous number of issues, and I, quite frankly, this is controversial to say. It's not very nice to say, but I think it's the truth. A lot of the people who voted for Abigail Spanberger in the last election really don't know anything about Abigail Spanberger. I mean, they don't. They don't know anything about her background. They don't know anything about her time at the CIA. Does anybody know anything about her time at the CIA? Nobody's covered it. Nobody's really done the dig deep, tell us about your time in Brussels. I mean, Ambassador Gutman, who has the Democrat show at WRVA, employed her at his embassy in Belgium. I guess he didn't do it directly, but she was assigned to the embassy when he was there. Anybody call him and say, hey, tell us about what she did when you were the ambassador? Nobody's done it that I'm aware of. Look and see. Has anybody done that story? I think that's kind of an interesting story about the incoming, well, probably would have been smart to do when she was a candidate for governor, don't you think? Maybe the people should understand, especially Democrats who used to hate the CIA. I guess once they got control of the CIA and could manipulate it to try to harm Republicans, they didn't hate it as much. But when I was growing up, Democrats hated the CIA. So why is it? And, maybe the people who are still journalists in Virginia, covering state politics, or even the people up in D.C., for God's sake. I mean, you're all making six figures. So what do? Roll in with your Starbucks coffee at 11:30, do a little hit on CNN, crank out a couple of media posts on social media, slap together a story for the next. What is it that you're doing? Because to me, this would be the obvious story. I'm sure there are other things that we could we could do, especially if you dug into the obvious story. You'd probably find other stories. We know nothing about Abigail Spanberger and her background. Tell me I'm wrong. And could somebody send me the link? Maybe I am wrong. One thing about me is if I'm wrong, I'll admit it. Show me the stories that dig into the background of the candidates for governor. I mean, you know a lot about me as lieutenant governor, right? You know a lot about the lies that were told about me, as everybody was obsessed about the lies about the candidates for lieutenant, or one candidate for lieutenant governor. Nobody worried about the other candidate. So I'm just curious, what do we know about the incoming governor? Nothing, except she's white lady. She's a soccer mom. She's supposedly a moderate. I don't recall seeing the dashboard of all of the votes in the Congress, comparing that to win some. It's water under the bridge. Who cares, right? We got a woman governor. She's a Democrat, so that makes it wonderfully historic. I find it interesting that all the stories today, these days, are about, oh, Madam Governor, as if you were going to have Madam Governor one way or another. You just got the governor that you wanted. You got the Democrat governor. You didn't get the black lady who would normally have been exactly what you wanted, because civil rights and racial justice, matter as long as there is a D behind your name. As soon as there's a black Republican woman, nobody gives a damn. And in fact, there's hostility about that. We can't let that happen. I mean, Winsome is a unique character. You can like her or not like her. I'm not really going to argue with you about that. But we know nothing about Abigail Spanberger, except what we've been told, that she's a moderate, which I don't think is true. So after all that, let me say something positive. She has appointed a new head of the state police. Now, I got no problem with the guy who's in there as the head of the state police. I've heard, people call me all the time and dump garbage in my ear about different people in state government, especially when I was on television and was an investigative reporter. Oh, my God. If I told you some of the stories that I have heard about different elected officials, some of the stuff you would be shocked about what's going on in downtown Richmond. If I were to go back and be an investigative reporter again, I'd go hang out in Shockoe Bottom after like 7 o'clock any night during the General Assembly session and just start taking notes. But anyway, I digress. The governor-elect has appointed the former police chief in Chesterfield County, a guy named Jeff Katz, not the Jeff Katz I used to work with at the radio station, Jeff Katz, the police chief, former police chief, to head the state police. Every interaction I had with him was positive. I don't recall a single moment in the time that I was on the radio and kind of tracking law enforcement issues with more intensity, certainly, than I do now, that I ever thought, oh, what's this guy doing? That doesn't make any sense to me. I called around to a couple of people yesterday and this morning and said, is my instinct on this right? Do we feel good about Jeff Katz leading the state police? And everybody has said positive things, including hyper-partisan people who are going to be very, very skeptical about every appointment that the Democrats make. So that's a very good thing. And I want to say to you, I don't know. I mean, it's up to the governor who serves in different positions across the state. And I respect that. Unlike the Democrats, I actually respect the law and tradition. So if you get elected governor, you get to pick who serves in different positions. And you don't really have to cater to me. You probably should be thoughtful about picking people who are too extreme, because I'm sure as hell going to point it out if you pick extreme people. But this one seems like a responsible pick. Over the course of the next couple of weeks, we'll probably go through some of the other people who've been picked who I would question. But I wanted to start with something semi-positive and say, good for the governor-elect picking Jeff Katz. Here's the number one reason that I have been paying attention to this issue. With Jay Jones as the new attorney general. And, I've only met Jay, I think maybe twice. He was polite. He was, semi-friendly. I saw him once. I went up and spoke to him, as I always do. Uh, when I see a Democrat, generally, who hasn't crossed me, who hasn't defamed me or libeled me or tried to trash me, and that number has grown in the last couple of months. I'm very friendly with people. We might not agree on stuff, but I'm kind of old school that, we may not agree on things, but I can still be polite, minimally polite, and generally friendly with you. We don't have to agree on everything. That's my attitude. It's changing a little bit. I hate to say that because, when people call you a Nazi and a white supremacist, and then make up lies about you and try to destroy your reputation, not just defeat you politically, which is totally fine. Totally fine. If you're running, it's okay. You can call me a Trump lover if you want to. You can talk about the abortion issue and say, "Oh God, he's a crazy pro-life." If you want to say that, that's fine. That's fair game. What I don't consider to be fair game is to make up lies about somebody, and I'm pissed about that. My mother won't like that I use that word, but I'm very angry to have people making up lies. So my attitude is changing. But with Jay Jones, with what he did during this campaign, he's one of the people who repeated a lie on stage about me in particular during his debate with Jason Miyares. And I'm not forgetting it. Let me tell you, that shows to me he does not have the mindset of a responsible, sober, thoughtful leader as Attorney General. So everybody else involved in law enforcement needs to be someone who is sober and who is thoughtful and who is approaching their job as being fair. And one of the things that I am worried about is that responsible, sober, fair-minded people say, "Oh, peace out, I'm not doing this." And they leave service in the state police, the Capitol Police, the Executive Protection Unit. I think we're going to lose police officers all over the state, especially if the Democrats do away with qualified immunity and you figure you're a cop and every day you go out and you got to do your job. And all it takes is one person to file a lawsuit, probably a frivolous lawsuit, but a lawsuit of any kind, and you wind up bankrupted because you've got no protection, even if you follow the rules doing your job. And there are plenty of trash lawyers out there who would very gladly bankrupt cops or try to cut some sort of deal and say, "You owe us money," and then this whole thing can go away. I mean, think about you. How much money do you have to defend yourself in court if somebody goes after you? You probably don't have a job where you're, a target for this kind of lawsuit. But if we do away with qualified immunity in Virginia, and I think the Democrats have every intention of doing that, it's going to be bad. And the good cops are going to leave. They're going to leave. And guess who they're going to be replaced with? People with low standards, low morals, low professionalism. And then we got a big problem. People like me who always support the police, who try to be objective. We're going to be in a tough situation because there'll be a new type of police officer. And they will be probably likely to be politicized. And this is the problem. If we don't have senior leadership that is, I don't want to say neutral, but is fair-minded and will obey the law, look at the law and obey the law and not be weaponized, we got a problem in Virginia. So this, I've taken a lot of slaps at the governor-elect in what was supposed to be the positive comment of the day. But I'm glad that Jeff Katz will be in this role again. Nothing against the current superintendent of the state police. You just know when a new governor comes that, in one of these roles that you may be replaced. But this gives me a little bit of hope that the state police and other law enforcement entities won't be mobilized to do political damage to people. Because honestly, I know a couple of people who they're packing up. They're leaving Virginia because they're kind of worried about how they may be treated. Of course, they're worried about higher taxes. And they're worried about, bad policy, which we're going to get. Just watch. We'll watch over the next 60 days at the General Assembly. When you cut on the local news and you get this BS about, keeping campaign promises, the campaign promises that the Democrats are going to keep, and they ain't good for Virginia. And they're going to make it a lot worse to live here. And we just pray that the damage is minimal and that it could be reversed. But what can't be reversed is if we lose all of the professional-minded leaders in the state agencies and particularly in the police. So I'm pleased about Jeff Katz being in that role. Can I tell you, I'm just shocked. Last night I was in D.C. For the last night of the fireworks and the kickoff to the America 250 celebration. Thank God it's a celebration. Can you imagine if Kamala Harris were president? This would be the lamentation 250. Everything would be slavery. Everything would be lamenting every bad thing. I don't have any problem talking about the evolution of thought in America and expanding freedom for more people. That's great. That's great. I'm for it. What I don't like is this constant refrain of, oh God, you people you're awful, especially the white people. You are awful. You're terrible people. And thank God you had wise Latinas and like the Supreme Court justice to come in and fix how stupid and evil you white people are. That's what I thought we were going to get. And I think we would have gotten that. We may get it with Ghazala and Jay and Abigail here in Virginia. That's one of the unfortunate things about them leading the state in such an important symbolic year is I think you'll get the lamentations. It'll be constantly going on the slave trail instead of talking about eliminating slavery and freeing people and emancipating the minds, not just the bodies, but the minds of people. You'll get this constant referral back to the evils that existed. And I don't think that's healthy. I don't think that creates a healthy society. But it's a mindset change. It's a mindset change. It's very different from how I approach things. So anyway, I was in D.C. We didn't get back till 1:00 in the morning here in Richmond because they had the fireworks. And I think producer Dan has a video that we'll show later towards the end of the program. It really was kind of cool to see the projections on the Washington Monument. But I digress. There were protesters in Washington last night, and protesters in in New York, and protesters in Miami. Big time leftists. I don't know if they're getting paid or not. Demanding that Nicolas Maduro, the former president of Venezuela, be released. These are the same people who aligned with the Democrats when Chuck Schumer and others were trashing Maduro and saying that Donald Trump, in his first term, hadn't done enough to get rid of him, to punish him, to get rid of him. I mean, this guy, I don't know, in the last, 72 hours, have you done any reading about him? Objective, you got to check multiple sources. You can't just read one article and assume that you know what's going on. You check multiple sources and see if you can establish a pattern. I mean, that's modern journalism in America because everything seems to be point of view. So I honestly, I can't tell you one place that I think you can go and get an objective analysis of 99% of the issues. You kind of have to read multiple sources. Like every morning, I check Pro USA News. I hate the name because I think it sounds loaded, but it seems to have stories that come from my perspective on the world. And then I check the Drudge Report, which is lefty crazy often. And I just try to see where everybody is on things, knowing that I'm pretty confident in my knowledge and my background. So did anybody check in the last 72 hours? If you're not a specialist on Venezuela, and I don't claim to be, and I'm assuming you're not, you may be aware of it. You might be able to. I mean, here's the other funny thing. Could most Americans who have an opinion about Maduro actually take a blank map and show me where Venezuela is on the map? Do you think? I doubt it. I doubt they would. I'm not even sure they would go to South America. And could they find South America on a map? I mean, this is the reality of the society that we're living in. But um, it's bad news. These crazy protesters who hate Trump so much. It's fine. You don't like Trump? Okay, whatever. I'm not going to argue with you anymore. But if you hate him so much that 5 years ago, your leaders in the Democrat Party were bashing Trump for not doing enough to get rid of the dictator. Um, but today, after he gets rid of the dictator, you hate Trump because he did so, and you call this illegal. Can we just pull up some of the tweets, some of the crazy tweets? Now, these are not specialists. I think these are Hollywood people who, of course, because they're famous, they think everybody. Here's Ellen Barkin. What has she been in it lately? I mean, I barely, whatever. I'm not following it. The United States can only begin war with another country through a declaration of Congress. Well, we didn't declare war. We're not in a war. Also giving Hitler's blitz through Europe. What, are you going too fast? Are they on a loop or something? Um, Trump signals on Fox News that he may be invading Mexico and seizing Claudia Sheinbaum, the president there, next. The Western Hemisphere is mine. I mean, Trump is playing his cards to make sure that everybody pays attention to the interests of the United States, because these people have not just been not paying attention to their neighbor to the north. They've been doing things deliberately to cause harm to us. Do you get that? Do you understand that? Put down your hamburger and your French fries. Uh, all you fat losers who have lots of opinion about foreign affairs, even though you've never opened a book on the issue. We have adversaries around the world who are trying to do harm to this country. And you've got to ask yourself, if you care, I don't expect you to study it. I don't expect you to plunk down money on a ticket and go and visit these countries. I don't expect you to go to the World Affairs Council lecture to try to educate yourself on it. But you've got to understand the world is hostile to the United States, which means it's hostile to you. If you voted for Abigail Spanberger and Ghazala and Jay Jones because you're delusional and think that they're going to be able to make life better for you and drop the prices on eggs for you, then may I implore you, please, to recognize that the rest of the world is trying to drive the prices up for you. They're trying to make it difficult for you to live here because they want the United States to be a weaker country. They don't want the United States to have the position that is traditionally held for the last century. They don't like that. That's not in their best interest. So the world is a hostile place. I don't know what it's going to take for everybody here to wake up to that. I hope it's not soldiers arriving on the West Coast or another 9/11 attack or another bombing or our own civil war. I don't know when you're going to figure this out, but this is not a Hallmark card. This is not Happy Land. And when you come to this program, and I'm a theater guy. I love disappearing into fantasy land where everything, that's one reason I like musicals, because they generally end with something positive. Even a tragedy, it generally ends with something where you go, oh, I'm taking a lesson from that will inspire me. That's why I like that, because the real world doesn't seem to be that way. Sometimes it's really bad, and you're looking to try to find something that's positive. Recognize that the world is against us generally. They want us, we're the big dog. They want to take us down at least one notch. And part of the problem here is that you've got a lot of Democrats. And I'm sorry that the anti-American crowd has found a home in the Democrat Party, but I don't think I'm wrong to say that. Do you? I think most of the people domestically who hate the United States, hate the history of the United States, hate the United States today, have found a home in the Democrat Party. And that's bad. But they were lamenting Maduro last year, 5 years ago. They've hated this guy. He was a tyrant. He was oppressing the people. Now, because of Donald Trump alone, they do a 180. And it's got to be called out. I mean, you can't be inconsistent about this stuff. It's unfair to objective, honest people. That's assuming you want to be objective and honest, and I would like to be. I remember when, and I got to go in a second here because here we are already on track to go over time. I remember I was living in, I think it was Kuwait, when Barack Obama was killing people. He just was. He was going around, bing, 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 taking people out, and then he got Osama bin Laden. Do you think I, as a Republican who wasn't an Obama supporter, started trashing Barack Obama? No. I was glad. I was glad that he got rid of Osama bin Laden. I was glad about that. I didn't trash Barack Obama for that. He's not in my party. I didn't really care for him as a president. I think that he did a lot of damage as president. This whole no drama Obama thing is a total fabrication. Yeah, you don't have any drama when the press is choosing not to create any drama on your behalf. But okay, I'll give the guy credit. Why have we completely lost that ability when it comes to Trump? And it's not just Trump, because whoever the next president is, they'll do the same thing to him. Just get ready. I mean, it is one of the benefits. Yesterday was my birthday. I turned 55. It is one of the benefits of getting into your 50s. Now you have some longevity watching this stuff, and you begin to see, wait a minute, Reagan was Hitler. Bush was Hitler. Bush 1 was Hitler. John McCain was Hitler. Mitt Romney was Hitler. Plus, he abused his dog, right? Remember, you begin to see the pattern. Like, there's nothing anybody can do. As different as those Republican leaders were, they all wind up being called Hitler. And at some point, you go, wait a minute, maybe they're not being honest. Maybe they're just calling Republicans Hitler because it seems to work with, 20-30% of the population. If you call them Hitler, there's a revulsion there, and Republicans lose their. How about we be honest? How about honesty for a moment? That's what I would like to see. And you can tell me you don't like his policies. It's cool. But if one of the policies you don't like from Donald Trump today, on the 6th day of January, is that he got rid of a dictator who you hated up until about 3 days ago, and who you said was oppressing his own people up until about 3 days ago, you're the liar. You're the problem, not Donald Trump. Share that with one of your Democrat friends. We're going to take a quick break. I'm over already. Hugh Shakeshaft, our London insider. I don't know where he is today. Is he in New York or Palm Beach or London, or sometimes he's in Brussels? We'll talk to Hugh about the international situation when we continue in about 30 seconds on the Reid Revolution. Okay, quick break. That gave us a chance to get Hugh Shakeshaft all queued up. For years at WRVA, Hugh Shakeshaft joined us to talk not just about international policy, but, he was friends with Prince Philip and had observed the royal family up close in England. I find him to be one of the most interesting people that I've ever talked to. If you remember the show, Hugh and I met in a very raucous bar in Washington, D.C. I don't know, at least maybe 10 years ago. But Hugh, you never know where Hugh's going to be. He's lived all around the world. Hey, good morning to you, Hugh.
Morning, John. How are you?
You got your pink shirt with the collar up.
Trying to look trendy like you, John. You're far too handsome.
So I think that's Palm Beach that you're in.
Yes, as you know, you can tell by the wallpaper behind, right?
Yes, that's what clued me in.
Yeah. So how are you this morning? Congratulations on your new podcast.
Well, thank you. I'm excited about it. We had a good first day, and I figured bringing in someone like you would help us with day number 2, because you were always very popular on the radio. What do you? I mean, you've lived all around the world and have done these big business deals all around the world. Dealt with, well, I mean, we don't even need to go into the world leaders who've tried to kill you. that's a whole nother story. Maybe over some
Thank you very
bourbon one
much.
night.
Yeah.
Yes,
Let's
but
get that out there first of all.
what
Yeah.
is your what is your take on what has happened in Venezuela?
It's very interesting, actually, John, because he warned him. Trump warned him. He said what he was going to do. He's made it very clear to China, Russia, Iran, and the rest of the rogue nations that, Central America and South America is America's and USA's backyard. Under no circumstances will he tolerate anybody using any of those nations as a staging post, as a means to get at and endanger American lives, the border, or anything else, or, economic well-being. So why people are surprised when he acted, I have no idea.
Because they're used to weak leaders who listen to all the weak, I hate to say it, like Georgetown educated pansies who whisper in the ear, "Oh God, don't do that. That's going to upset people." You're going to have to upset some people if you want to survive in the modern world, I think.
Absolutely, and I think that he's one of the few people that can do it, because his for those that hate him, it doesn't matter on the basis that they're not going to hate him anymore or any less.
Right.
It's
right.
like he's hit
no matter
rock
what
bottom.
he does.
He's hit rock bottom. No matter what they do, as he said, he could cure cancer, and they'd find a reason. And let's be clear: mononuclear, the COVID treatment that he had actually worked. I sat with the president of the company that created that, the monoclonal antibodies, right, at an event in the Natural History Museum in New York, under the whale, dinner under the whale. And I said to him, during this, and it was the day after Eric Adams got elected, and I said, the worst thing that happened to you was that Trump came out and endorsed your product and said it worked. And he said, yeah, it was. He said, because in fact, he was a lot sicker than everybody knew. And I know Gus
Trump
Spillarakis,
was when he had
Trump,
COVID.
when he went into hospital, he was a lot sicker than they were willing to let on, right? And in 24 hours, he turned him around. And now I know Gus Spillarakis, the guy from Tarpon Springs, the congressman, lovely man. His father was a congressman there. It's almost like a family business. And Trump had sent it over to him the same day as well. And he said to me, it was unbelievable. He said, I was really, really sick, thinking, oh my God, I'm in serious trouble here. Within 24 hours, he said, I was right as rain. Now, people's hatred of Trump at that point was such they were willing to let people die rather than give him any credit. Now, when you get to that level,
that's why they lost me the normal decorum that I had and that I would love to bring back, is to be even-handed and moderate and listen to everybody and try to be. I assume now, as you're pointing out, that if Donald Trump were to come up with something that even a year ago everybody would have agreed on, if he says it today, 40 to 50% of the American public and their leaders will totally trash Trump, even if it's in their worst interest. They'll do it, and that's shocking. That's a sickness. If that's
absolutely right. I mean, you've got to give credit where credit's due, and we always talk about it, John. He's not everybody's cup of tea, but a very, very eminent man of the 80s, one of the biggest corporate raiders the world had ever seen. As you know, Deborah and I know him, and his words to me were, and I'm going to paraphrase it, were that, look, Trump is a New York real estate guy. They are all a-holes, right? It's about time they took responsibility and owned him, right? Those are the exact words on him. Now, I don't elect someone. Well, I don't get to elect. That's another issue here with, no taxation without representation, I seem to think is a big word. Actually, I don't get to vote, but I get taxed. So there you go.
I thought you were a naturalized citizen.
No,
No?
I'm green card holder. I mean, I may
Oh,
do. I'm gonna, John. It's going to be about another 10 years before I face that decision, and I'll be just celebrating that I have to make that decision because it means
that
at
you're
my age
alive.
I'm still
Yeah.
alive. Yeah, Um, but going back to that, you don't elect someone for their personality, and you certainly don't elect them on the basis that, oh, Keir Starmer might be upset with your personality. You know, you, the UK is reaping the rewards for their arrogance in opposition. You know, calling him a racist and all of these kind of fascists, and whatnot, comes home to roost. He's the most powerful man on the planet. Get over it, whether you like it or not. And he is going to put America first. We're 2 miles, as you know, from Mar-a-Lago on the same road, right now. And I'm very proud of what he's done. I mean, even Deborah, dyed in the wool, Trump hater, my wife, is saying he's getting stuff done. And she was marveling at what he did over Maduro.
Mm-hmm.
Now,
Well,
what it
she's
sends is,
intellectually honest, right?
yeah,
She's
she
not
is,
so
absolutely.
rabidly a Democrat Trump hater that she can't acknowledge that what
Well, on a
she would have
personal level,
applauded if Barack Obama was in office, she'll
yeah, I
applaud it
mean,
from Trump. Good.
yeah, no, she does. She says he's getting stuff done in not so many words, same different expletives, but and that is what you've got to look at. History will smile on him later, when one looks back and only looks at policy and everything else. And the fact that everybody hated him on the left will just be a footnote. As Churchill said of himself, he said, "History will be kind to me because I will write that
Right.
history." Right.
Yeah, that's
Unfortunately,
helpful.
Trump is not quite. How can we put it? Trump is not quite as eloquent as Churchill, but he's still getting stuff done. And let's be clear, FDR hated Churchill,
Mm-hmm.
but they got stuff done, and there was no need to rabidly attack each other. What you've got out there right now is you've got a major danger. You've got China, you've got Russia, you've got Iran, and particularly Iran, with the fact that at the moment you've got a situation over there with the rioting and the protests. The people are very soon, if it goes into a deeper crisis, will be trying to cross the Straits of Hormuz across to the UAE. Now, then, Iran has already attacked Abu Dhabi in 2022. You will see the boat people start. The world's media will be all like, "Oh my God, refugees, refugees."
Right.
Iran will see that as the UAE facilitating their citizens escaping. And at
then
that
what
point,
happens?
Iran will attack the UAE. And
Well, that'd be a mistake.
what Saudi and UAE fell out over Yemen, didn't it? Mm-hmm. Only a couple of weeks ago, or less than that. When Saudi
so
bombed the port.
You're not optimistic switching to Iran, because when I lived in the Middle East, I was very worried about Iran. People ask why I'm so hostile. It's because they were sending money to have people like me, American business people, kidnapped, killed. I felt like I had to watch my back in every meeting, in every cab, everywhere I went, because I was there by myself. I didn't have some entourage. I talked to the people at the United Nations and some of the USAID organizations that were working in the different countries, and they said, "Oh yeah, we've got bodyguards and we've got kidnapping insurance." And I called my boss. I'm like, "Kidnapping insurance? What are we talking about? You just sent me over here naked, basically." But watching Iran, this isn't the first time you've seen protests against the leadership in Iran, and eventually it seems to get shut down. They kill the people who are causing protests. They kidnap their family members and pull everybody back in line, and then it all kind of goes away, and the regime stays in power. Is that what we're going to see again? It doesn't sound like you're optimistic.
I think, I've got some people very close to it that I work with who are actually working very, very heavily on the economic side of it right now to try and finally bring the regime down. One of the biggest issues there is that there is no viable opposition. They've all been killed. Over the years, they have entrenched themselves so deeply. And it's one of the things like the Maduro group, because through Chavez and through him and everything else, they've been in power so long that the rot actually goes down to many, many generations, and you've got secret police, which means you're going to have people denouncing one another. Now, I think Trump's doing the right thing. I mean, you watch that ludicrous Brennan woman say, well, why didn't you pick up the chief of police, and why didn't you do all of the rest of it? You know, because you got warrants out on them. It's like, well, you go after the number one guy and his wife. The rest are on notice now. Rodriguez, the now acting president, knows that she's going to need to do stuff. But eventually there will be a replacement for that, John. Now, then it's at what point does the incoming regime and the people's, you know, that they voted for, do they outlaw those guys? Do they banish them? Or do they actually hand them over to law enforcement? He's now set the precedent, which says we can reach you, we can do minimal collateral damage, right? And we can get everybody else out. Don't be stupid. Don't try and do what Maduro did, which was threaten me and call me a coward and tell me to come and get him, because that's what I did. So, wow. You know, it's
now the president of Colombia has done the same thing. What's that?
Yeah, all about? You know, and they don't
be taunting Donald Trump right now.
Well, you know, they've poked the bear slapped them. You know, it's a grizzly. You know,
the United States is.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's a big bear that is now ready and willing to roar. You know, and I think it's a good thing. I think that you know he's laid out his buffet, which is the Central and South America is off limits. He will not have China trying to get influence in there, you know, and everything else. Remember, there was an envoy, a Chinese envoy in town
at the time of the
extraction. No, you know, but that's not a low-level guy.
What does China do going forward? Because I would think that my experience with the Chinese is they're not going to let something completely pass. Doesn't mean that they're going to respond immediately. But,
having lived out in Asia for 14 years, loss of face is a massive motivator for them,
right?
Which they've lost a lot of face now. But what they have, Xi needs confrontation, because his economy, contrary to what all the left are saying here, it's a driving force, is imploding. He's got unrest himself. You know, one of the things is that he needs the conflict. So he possibly will go after Taiwan. But to make the comparison between Venezuela and Taiwan is different. China has a sovereign, in its own mind, a sovereign claim to Taiwan. The US never said it was a sovereign claim. They did not want to go to war with them, and they were not invading. They were just exercising a lawful, police, a law enforcement exercise, which they did with minimum damage, right? China will want to take over. That's a bigger deal. That's boots on the ground forever. Now, the question is, will we allow that? America has agreements with Japan and the Philippines. So China would be very stupid to try and do that. The Spratly Islands down in the Philippines could become a real flashpoint. Now, I don't think Xi wants it. Whilst he's got confrontation and everything else, he remains in power. But his position is very, very precarious there.
Yeah.
Now, do we want China, imploding? At some point, the Chinese Communist Party is going to lose power. But then it's a matter of what comes next. I think that, Trump has learned that, and the administrations, and the bureaucrats in the US have learned that you don't just go in and go mission accomplished.
Well, let's hope not. I feel like the last 20 years, 30 years, that is the American arrogance of assuming, okay, we've taken care of this and it's done.
Yeah, leaving them to their own devices.
I think
it also went back to the time when when the wall came down. I was in Moscow at the time in '91, just after the first coup against Gorbachev. And one of the things that I could not believe there was that the people were very impatient for for capitalism. The biggest people who got in there the most, believe it or not, were the advertising agencies from the US. Advertising that you got to have this, you got to have Chanel, you got to have everything else. What we didn't do was help them transition from a controlled economy, which was utterly failing, to a market economy, and the process between. We were too busy running around, with the trophy, going, "Hey, we won."
We really did get distracted. We thought we had won, and the communism was dead, and that everything was going to be okay. And I think we caused problems internationally by losing focus, and domestically, we let these people show up domestically. And I'm gonna run out of time with you, Hugh. So let me. I know you split your time between London and Palm Beach and wherever, and New York.
Yeah.
So I don't want to miss the opportunity. Speaking of communists showing up on our own shores, and for some reason, the people of the United States, I don't know whether they think they're being nice or whether they're hopeful that they're going to get stuff for free. That's probably the main motivation. They're electing people who hate the country, who espouse economic positions minimally, and social positions, I would argue, that are going to destroy the country if they take hold. Mamdani in New York is now the mayor. How in the hell that happened? Somebody with no experience and has barely lived in the city long enough to be the manager of the department store there, much less be the mayor. What do you think of this guy taking over a city that you've got a lot invested in?
Well, I'm in Palm Beach right now. That tells you everything.
That tells you.
Yeah. I mean, New York, as it happens, Deborah flew up this morning for a couple of days, but we're going to be minimally there. I mean, I just think that, as I said when he won, I said, you get what you vote for, John, and you deserve what you get. Now, if you're too stupid to understand what this actually means, go to Venezuela. Go on a visit. Take busloads of them down there and say, this is the warmth of collectivism. This is what happens when you elect communists. And let's be clear, what outrages me more than anything is that this man, whose only interest about 9/11 was that some spurious aunt that he may or may not have made up, right, couldn't wear a hijab on the subway because she was fearful. After 9/11.
People didn't attack her, didn't throw acid on her, didn't set her on fire, didn't stab her, didn't kidnap her. They gave her dirty looks, supposedly.
Yeah,
and
supposedly.
That's supposed to be the catalyst for a change in public policy in New York City and across the United States. People who hate us. Give me a break.
Yeah, exactly. And the other thing is, John, that he is going to have to, on the 25th anniversary of that terrorist atrocity by scum, murderous scum. And let's be clear, you'll feel quite strong about this. And I'm not governed by being a member of any party, as you know, John, for the very reason I can speak like this, right?
And Hugh's not running for office, so you can
exactly right, right? But let's be clear, he's going to stand there as a New Yorker when he actually stated that everybody has this idea that after 9/11, everybody suddenly within New York became a New Yorker. He said it was a fallacy. It was not true in post-colonial America. Mm-hmm. And you hear what his parents have said. His father stated in writing in one of his books that we should not be hard on suicide bombers, as they are only doing their military duty. And you have Sabrettes, all of the hot dog stores. I will not buy from them in New York on the street because they're all halal. Also, they have one very close to Ground Zero because, as you know, our house is very close to Ground Zero by the water, right? Where at one point the guy was blaring out music, call to prayer music, very loudly outside of O'Hara's, the pub where all of the firemen and the police were hotbedding 24 hours a day, being fed by the pub across the road to go into Ground Zero to do their work. Now they have a Sabrettes outside there that was blaring music, and I complained to 2 police officers. I said, are you aware of what this means? This is a call to prayer outside.
People are not aware. They assume that this is an example of American freedom and
Yeah,
open-mindedness.
and
But my concern is our
multiculturalism.
freedom and open-mindedness is going to be the thing that winds up getting us all killed.
Yeah, absolutely right. Our tolerance of their intolerance is going to get us killed. And equally in London, but the police stopped it, and now he doesn't play it. Right? There's no music coming from him now because that is a shrine. And I find it objectionable that it's turned into a tourist attraction. Do you know what I mean?
Oh,
I
yeah.
hope people go there to be educated. You see it. It's a solemn place, right? But back in London, Sadiq Khan has now allowed them to build a mosque in Piccadilly Circus. Now, I was told 20 years ago in a very well-known Muslim country by the information minister that very soon you will hear the call to prayer over all of the major Western landmarks. Piccadilly Circus is one of them. They will overspill from that mosque. They will do prayers in the street and bring the city to a standstill. That is the takeover complete in England. Because once they do that in a major landmark in the West End, you've been there, John. You know exactly where it is.
Oh,
that
sure.
will grind London to a halt on Friday prayers, and the police will do nothing. And I'm outraged by it. And that is a deliberate
arrest
ploy.
You when you put that on Facebook, and
I'll go to jail
say
for
it's
it.
a hate crime. Yeah,
and I mean, our biggest problem.
That?
No, because at the end of the day, free speech is that one. I've not been arrested yet. Returning, I tend to not do Facebook anymore because it's just too much of a pain. But I do call people imbeciles when they start doing it. I really have no time for it. I'm not concerned by that at all. But one thing I will say, about the Maduro situation, international law. Let's be clear what international law is. There's no sovereignty of international law. International law, Jackson created it with the Nuremberg trials. But at least the trials are held in Germany. But international law was created by lawyers for lawyer judges to overrule and legislate against anything they don't want. They want to rule by a non-democratic process. They want to actually rule by edict and legislation. That they, as a nice little thing, lawyer judges and lawyers control the world. Look at the UN. What a farce that is. We need to get out of it. And the UN
I used to totally believe in it, but that was the naive side of me that assumed that everybody had a benevolent heart and wanted to get along and wanted things to be good. And then I started to live and realized, oh, hell no, people don't want to get along. They want to dominate and oppress other people.
Yeah.
And the UN, instead of stopping that, appears to be giving a seat at the table to the tyrants. It's just like here in Virginia, the Democrats want to give immediate voting rights to murderers and rapists who get out of prison without any concern about whether they're actually reformed or not. And I think that some of them, at least, their motive is, you paid your debt to society. Well, have you? Just because you were locked up doesn't mean you've changed. The recidivism rate shows that you haven't changed, but you want to enable these people to cancel out the votes of people who didn't rob, didn't rape, didn't embezzle, didn't steal, didn't commit a crime. Why would you want to empower them? And that's the conclusion on a macro level that I reach with the United Nations. We provide a seat at the table and a microphone and power to the very same people who are oppressing their own citizens and make it very clear they would love to kill and oppress us. I'm not interested in empowering those people.
Exactly. And it comes down to the UN. Yeah. I mean, crime, you've got to be tough on it. But, from the UN point of view and international law, let's be clear. It is based on this utter nonsense and the pretense that all countries are equal.
Yeah. Which
is
sadly,
nonsense.
That's right.
And then it's once again cultural Marxism at its worst. And sadly in the UK we've got the worst too. We've got Hermer as the Attorney General and Starmer, both lawyers, both wanting to subjugate the UK to international law and the European Court of Human Rights. And it's got to end. We've got to get out of that nonsense. We're not actually governed by lawyers. We didn't elect lawyers, we didn't elect a court in, the European Court of Human Rights. How dare they? Remember, we created Magna Carta.
There is a movement, and the United States, as much as I love the United States, this is the problem. There's always this desire to have a collection of people under the delusion that they're all going to agree. And I'm really worried as I look at my own country, which I love with fervency, that the difference between how leftists, liberals, something that's not as polarizing, Democrats in California approach economics and the social structure and culture is so different in California than it is in Mississippi or Alabama. How in the world do we hold this collection of states together? I'm really worried, take the international scene out of it, that domestically we're about to see a hot civil war. I think we're in one anyway, based on the rioting all across the country and the violence that I want to stop. I want to be clear. I want to stop that. I don't think the Democrats want to stop it. I think they are using the Antifa crowd, formerly the BLM crowd, which thankfully has been discredited because they're all cheats and liars and have stolen millions of dollars from people. So that seemed to sober up the business community. I think they're using these people and their constant violence and hostility to edge us closer and closer to a hot war domestically, which will then make us prime pickings for the people who hate us overseas. Am I being? I mean, this sounds like we're having a conversation at 2 in the morning.
Yeah, I mean, you've only got to look at Minnesota. Timothy Walsh is either the most corrupt man I've ever seen, or he's a complete and utter imbecile. Now, I don't think he's either of those. He's somewhere in between.
The
he's
governor?
Just maybe
Waltz?
Yeah, the governor. Waltz. He's just an absolute clown. But the problem you've got is, and I say this to the UK, and we're in much deeper water than you are. When you import the third world, you get the third world. This is not magic soil here. When people land here in the land of milk and honey, they don't become American the moment they kiss the soil. They don't kiss the soil. They bring with them all of their own cultural attitudes and values, which are corruption, stealing, not assimilating. This is not, and I think Americans and the British need to get away, and the British are, because there are rioting coming the other way now, right? We need to get away from the idea that we are living on magic soil. We're living on hallowed ground. It's a great nation. I love this nation. I'm married to an American. You know that. And I always say, John, there's only two places in the world to live. And I've lived all around the world, and that is the United Kingdom and USA. And sadly, the United Kingdom is now becoming questionable, right? Yes, you can have all the pomp and circumstance that we had, John, but that's a bubble in London. The rest is very, very difficult.
That's the show. It's the attitude and the demeanor and the mindset in business, in culture, in the way you interact with people that determines
I mean, the Somali issue. And let's be clear, it is a Somali issue in Minnesota. Let's not beat about the bush.
There's no nice way to talk about this, unfortunately.
There isn't. It's not racist. It is a fact. As Charlie Kirk said, God rest his soul. It's a Somali problem. Prove me wrong.
Yeah. That's an unpopular take with people who I think still have a good heart and want to believe the Disney version that we're all the same, no matter where you are. But we're not all the same, and I think the biggest problem. We should be treated fairly under the law, but culturally we're not all the same, and we're seeing that. Hey,
absolutely,
Hugh, I gotta run. I got to run. Listen, when we blow this out to do 4 hours, at midnight, and we're having drinks. Alonzo told me, he watched the first episode yesterday, said, you're still trying to be an anchor man instead of a podcast host. And I was like, I don't know what you're talking about. He's like, maybe we should bring some vodka in and it would loosen you up a little bit. I'm not prepared to do that. But when we do that, I'm going to book you for like 2 hours and it'll be the best conversation of all time.
Yeah, Ron Reid, get that burgundy mustache going, John. Get that burgundy mustache.
Hugh Shakeshaft, I appreciate it very much. I hope I'll see you in person, especially when it gets really cold here in Richmond. Can I come visit you at Palm Beach?
You come stay anytime. You know that. You and Alonzo are always welcome.
You're very kind. Thanks, Hugh.
Thanks, John.
Okay, all right.
I will do. Bye.
All right. Poor producer Dan, he's so mad at me. It's just like the old radio days. I burned through a lot of extra time here, but we're going to take a 30-second break. We'll come back, and then we got a couple more topics that we want to cover here on the Reid Revolution. Okay, that's where the $100,000 commercial is going to go eventually here, but we don't have that at the moment. So we'll just continue on here for the last segment of our program, which is going to run a couple of minutes over. Producer Dan joins us in the final segment, and you put together so much good stuff. Do you want to show the? I don't want this to get old by the time, if we hold it till tomorrow, people may have seen it in other places. This woman who the mayor of New York has chosen to be the director of tenant services. I didn't know they had that in New York. Even when I lived there, it didn't seem like anybody was advocating for me. But I'm the wrong skin color, I suspect. That's controversial to say, but I think that's the deal. You've got this clip from Mamdani's tenant director talking.
I do, yes. And hey, before I play it, we got some feedback yesterday that my audio levels were not very good. Folks on the chat, let me know if I'm not coming in. I've boosted it up a bit. But let me know if I'm not coming in.
Let's get to the clip.
Yeah, here we go.
I think the reality is that for centuries we've really treated property as an individualized good and not a collective good. And we are going to transitioning to treating it as a collective good and towards a model of shared equity will require that we think about it differently. And it will mean that families, especially white families, but some POC families who are homeowners as well, are going to have a different relationship to property than the one that we currently have.
So you see how brazen she is in her racism? That's racism,
especially
folks.
us whites,
I don't know if
John.
you can. I don't know if we are conditioned to even hear it, and I know that it is controversial. I mean, me saying this is going to upset a lot of people. That woman is a racist. She's white, but she has been conditioned to be self-loathing and hostile to other whites. I think she's white. I don't know, but. She looks white, I guess. She speaks like a stupid Valley girl. I mean, would you ever? I've hired a lot of people. I've fired a few people, but I've hired a lot of people in my career. If that dingbat showed up and sat across the table from me, the interview would be about 60 seconds. And then I would go to the HR person who brought her in and say, what the hell is this woman doing sitting in front of me? That dingbat, Valley girl, stupid, I don't know, just the way she presents herself is foolish. That is not a thinking person. And the fact that she talks about white people now having a different relationship with private property, you know what that means? We're going to take it from you. That's what that means.
Yeah,
if you own something, what other relationship do you have? You own it.
Well, I mean, and like I always go philosophical about this stuff, but the concept of public property is a contradiction in terms. The only reason for having property is to designate ownership. So this notion of collectivized property that quote unquote property that we all just share the warmth of together or whatever else, that's nonsense. If you put the word property in front of it, you obliterate the whole concept.
This is what's coming to New York.
Yep.
This is why people who own land and buildings and valuable property in Midtown Manhattan, this is why they're looking for a way out. Because democracy has worked here. and the rule of law is about to go out the window. You know, when we don't agree that you purchase something, it is yours, and then you dispose of it as you see fit within parameters so it doesn't impact other people, which is a concern in a place that's as tight as Manhattan. It's not like, you know, even in Southwest Virginia where you've got miles between people. You do have to be worried about who's next door to you. But that's not what's happening here. What's happening here is democracy, pure democracy. The people, the masses who want what someone else owns, they're deciding they're going to vote in somebody who is then going to call together the votes in city council to take what they want. That's not the rule of law. That's not the rule of law that we're used to in Virginia. And interesting, Dan, I mentioned that I was in D.C. yesterday, so a couple of my friends saw on Facebook, "Oh, you're in D.C. What are you doing?" I said, "It's birthday dinner." One of my very dear friends for 25 years said, "Oh, I'm not in D.C., but I hope you have a wonderful time. Happy birthday." And I said, "Oh gosh, why aren't you in D.C.? It's after the holidays. Are you staying up with your parents?" They're staying with their parents out of the district because the house they bought for over $1 million the squatters have taken over the house and they can't get them out.
Oh my!
In D.C., a house that's worth over $1 million. So the squatters came in. And I don't know if I haven't gotten to the bottom. Is it an Airbnb thing but they can't get them out. And they've called the police, they've called City Hall in Washington, and they can't get rid of the squatters who are not paying anything. So this friend of mine is paying the mortgage on this. I mean, it's not even a beautiful house. It's a decent little house for over $1 million and can't live there himself because the squatters have taken over. Just in the last month, this has happened during the holidays. And I jokingly said, well, at some point you're just going to have to hire some DC thugs to get rid of the person. And this is the problem. When the system no longer works for the responsible people, when the system of laws and governance and police no longer protect the people who are doing, quote unquote, the right thing and allow those people to be abused, chaos is coming. Revolution and destruction is coming. This is one example out of 1 million plus people who live in D.C. But when I heard this, I thought, here we go. And that's already happening in New York. I'm curious as to whether it's happening in Richmond. I would assume, the Democrats in the General Assembly want to make it harder to evict people. They want to extend the period of time where you can sit and not pay, and they're going to sell it to everybody with the idea that we just want to give everybody a fair shot. Fine, give everybody a fair shot. My mortgage, what is today? The 6th of January?
Yep.
I paid my mortgage for January. So I know I got 20 days, 20-some days to figure out how I'm going to pay my mortgage for February. I mean, and I wake up, I lay in bed at night sometimes worried about credit card payments and mortgage payments and all that. If you're not doing that and you're just expecting everything to work out in your favor, or you're expecting to use the law so that you don't have to fulfill your obligations, then you're part of the problem.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's and look, I mean, I was glad you designated a few minutes ago between the concept of the rule of law and democracy, because these two things are not synonymous. And what we're seeing with these democratic encroachments is the violation of the rule of law, the encroachment on the rule of law. That's supposed to mean that basically you and I can go about our business in peace, and as long as we do that, nobody should have anything to say about what we do with our lives. But that's not what we are acting as though is the case these days. We're just saying, oh well, whatever a majority of voters, whatever democratically we decide we're going to do is okay. That's fair game. It goes. And so we're having these situations where these people get elected and think, oh well, now we can just do whatever we want. The joke I have, I guess, is that, well, if New York becomes unlivable, I guess move to Venezuela now. So it's
maybe they've turned the corner. depending on
we're
who
going
takes over,
in the other direction as some of these other places have sort of figured this all out. Like, oh gosh, this is not a way to live, quote
Well,
unquote.
somebody said to me yesterday, Dan, oh God, are you going to spend all your time talking about Abigail Spanberger and Ghazala Hashmi and Jay Jones? Yes, I'm going to spend a lot of time because I'm going to hold them accountable because they're liars. And they have sold a bill of goods to people, so we have to hold them accountable. If I don't do it, who's going to do it? Nobody else seems to be motivated to do it. So, yeah, I'm going to spend a lot of time. I'm also going to spend a lot of time talking about New York because New York is America's biggest city, and they have elected a communist and a radical Islamist to lead them. And if we don't pay attention to what's happening in New York and the decline that I think is going to come, I mean, I'd love to be wrong because I'm not rooting for our demise. I'm rooting for our success,
Sure.
individually and as a country. But I'm not stupid, and I think what's about to happen is really devastating if the people of the nation, including those who don't live in New York, don't watch closely, like a science experiment, what is happening here, then they're going to make the same mistake. I think we're coming close to making that mistake in Virginia, and I think in New York it's going to reveal itself as a mistake pretty quickly. So I want you to know it and be able to offer evidence that this is not the road that we should go down.
Well, it's like watching the novel Atlas Shrugged come to life before our eyes, and unless they erect some sort of an East German wall, people are gonna leave. They're just not gonna put up with this. And the thing about this sort of arrangement in a place like I think New York's about to be is that the takers need the givers. Without the givers, you can't take anything.
It was frustrating to me, Dan. You talk about the migration. It's happened in Henrico County, where I live, my home county, where I grew up. Where I live, what, 2.5 miles from the house that I grew up in here in Henrico now. When I was campaigning in Henrico, I met a lot of very nice people who had moved to Henrico in the last decade. And, I've lived in New York, in Manhattan. I've lived in Los Angeles. It's not like I hate big cities or hate people from big cities. It's not the case. But I had several people say, oh, you seem like a nice guy, but I'm just never voting for a Republican. And that was troubling to me. And I said, well, who did you vote for in New York and New Jersey? Well, we voted for Democrats. And I said, and you left New York and New Jersey because why? Well, higher taxes, and it just became unlivable. I said, well, do you think, and I'm not trying to be combative or rude because I'm Southern. It's one of the nice things about being a Southerner. I'm not trying to get up in your face and be obnoxious, but did you contemplate that perhaps voting for Democrats and Democrat policies in New York and New Jersey created the situation that you were fleeing from? And it would probably not be wise, especially if you think I'm a nice guy, and I am, to write me off and then vote for the same thing you just escaped from. Maybe you should contemplate that. But man, it was over and over and over again. And I guess this proves Hugh's point in a different way about just because you come someplace, oh, this is such a wonderful place, I'd like to live here. But if you bring the same attitudes, I mean, people think we're insulting people from Somalia. Not necessarily. I'm not trying to be a jerk about people in Somalia, but if the attitude and the behaviors and the culture of Somalia has created a failed country, and you come to the United States and you don't change your attitude, your behavior, and your cultures, then you're going to bring down where you live now. And I didn't expect to do this. I don't mean it to be really ugly, but that's what a lot of people from New York and New Jersey are doing here in Virginia. We want to come here. It's so inexpensive. It's so nice. Everybody's so friendly. Well, come on. Then don't do the same damn thing you did up there that ruined your life up there.
Yeah. Yep. Little saying I came up with that the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. Just a thought.
Did you come up with that?
And nobody else ever thought of that before I did. But no, we're watching people who have not learned the lessons of history, and I think I've talked to you privately about this. I maybe won't express publicly where I think this is headed, but I don't think that these folks are going to learn their lesson unless they experience firsthand for themselves what statism, what totalitarianism is like. And all I want in that situation is just, okay, you guys have at it. Just, I'm going the other way.
But you're
Stay
not
away
going to
from
be
me
able
and
to
don't steal my stuff.
This
I
is
know,
the
that's the
This
fear.
is why the people who've said, John, why you lost the election, and I did lose the election. It was a pretty bad loss. I'm upset about it. I mean, I'm shocked and upset about it. Why don't you go away? You're not Glenn Youngkin. You don't have $700 million in the bank. No kidding. If I was a smart person and totally selfish, then I would go to try to make my own money and just write all this garbage off and say, good luck, everybody. This is my home. This is where my family is. This is where my family has been. I can't let Virginia go down the toilet. And I know that I'm a decent person who is not trying to force my views on everybody else. I'm not trying to be a tyrant. I'm trying to save Virginia. And
by definition, if you believe
I
in
also know that
individual
if
liberty,
I
you are
walk
not
away,
doing that.
Dan,
Yeah.
if I walk away, I'm going to wind up taking the ride that other people are going to determine. You know, this is one of the reasons that I quit the radio show and ran for lieutenant governor, is I'm sick and tired of letting fools make the decisions in this state and wind up costing me the life and the finances and the lifestyle and the culture that I want to experience in Virginia. And that's on both sides of the political spectrum. You know what, we'll do a show where I'll criticize Republicans at some point. That'll make everybody happy. I'm fine with calling people out. I'm not going to take your ride. I want to have some say in that. And I wish that I thought we could all just go our own direction, because I'd be willing to do that, but that's not.
Yeah, you'd think that the
the
live
left
and let
wants me to go
live
with
proposition would be more appealing. I mean, that's basically. But the fact of the matter is that for all the people maybe on the left who act as though they want to say that they believe in that, their way of, and again I'm using quotes here, quote unquote life, is one that depends on having somebody to take care of them, somebody to finance them, somebody who is the benefactor. In fact, by force, an indentured servant, but yeah, they cannot survive or thrive in a live and let live proposition, and that's why obviously they don't vote for it.
Yeah, if everyone had to pay their own bills, all their own bills, starting tomorrow, it would be 6 months of screaming and whining and crying, but it would probably be pretty smart that everybody has to wake up in the morning and go, oh my God, I can't count on a check arriving in the mail from you and me, who used to be up at 4 o'clock in the morning to do a radio program, and they would take those taxes and give it to somebody else. I'm tired of that. I am watching the clock. We're already over where we were yesterday, Dan. I'm sorry. Can we show the video real quick of last night? Because let's end on something positive.
Yeah.
This was really great last night in Washington at the Washington Monument. Look at those fireworks. And you don't see this. I think one other time they've taken the Washington Monument and projected things on it for the anniversary of the moon landing. And I, of course, I think I was living in D.C. at the time, or had an apartment in D.C. And so I ran out to go see that and get pictures of it. I thought that was really special. So yesterday was my birthday, and I told my sister and my brother-in-law, why don't we go up to D.C.? We'll have fancy dinner. And we went to this great restaurant called La Grande Boulangerie. If you get a chance to go there, now it wasn't cheap. Thank goodness I didn't have to pay for it. But it was talk about the welfare state. It was amazing. It's in an old bank, but it's right there on 14th Street. But then we walked down to see the Washington Monument, and look at these projections here. The Apollo ship going up, the Statue of Liberty. They projected these onto the Washington Monument. There's Alonzo and me last night. It really was a spectacular display, and the whole point of doing it from New Year's Eve, and last night was the last night. So here I'm showing you something that you can't go see now. I hate to do that to you, but last night they concluded the kickoff of the 250th birthday of America with fireworks that you saw there at the Washington Monument. I thought, what a great way to celebrate 55th birthday is
I'm so proud to be an American. I'm thankful to be an American. I'm thankful for all the sacrifices that the people before me made to create the culture and the society and the country that we live in. I know that ticks people off when I say this, but I'm going to say it anyway. I don't give a damn whether you like it or not. As a gay man, I am thankful that I can show that picture of Alonzo and me in Washington and not have to worry about being smashed in the head by somebody. I don't care what the religious faith is, somebody who's going to attack us. I'm thankful that I live in a society in which I get to live my life as I see fit, and you're certainly entitled to your opinion, but I get to live as I see fit. That's the society that I want to live in going forward. And I thought there would be nothing better than to celebrate my birthday, a pretty significant one, I guess, 55. That's pretty good.
You get the discount price on the movies now.
Oh, have I? I guess 55 is when you start getting the A area discount, the senior discount. Is that right?
Very important in my world, John. Oh, cheaper movies. But yes, I think 55.
I guess 55. It's 55 plus communities. You know what? I always hear 55 plus in senior stuff. Senior discounts, and I just never think it has anything to do with me. I just don't see myself that way. Oh my God.
I don't see myself as 45. I mean, it's just like, oh my gosh, how is this possible?
Well, happy, but thank you for that, Dan.
I still feel like a teenager. I don't know about you, but yeah.
No one mentioned that to me last night. Thank you for bringing
it up.
Leave it to me.
Leave it to me to do it. Of course, I'd be the one who would say it. Yeah. So hey, that means movie
it was
discounts.
Great. I'll put some more pictures on the Reid Revolution Facebook page, which Alonzo will then put on Twitter, so that if you didn't get to be there and see this, I thought it was really spectacular. And I hope that it is the start of a year of celebration of what makes America great. And it will allow us to study our past and make a decision that we're going to double and triple down on capitalism and personal freedom and personal responsibility and rugged individualism and reject collectivism, right? I hope that's what we're about to do. And I have faith that will be the leadership of Donald Trump and his team, is that we celebrate America instead of lamenting things from the past. So that's our show for this Tuesday. We've run a little long again. I guess this is going to kind of be the deal, Dan. Good job trying to discipline me to tighten it up. We'll figure that out as we go forward. Tomorrow, a lot of great topics and a special guest who I think you will recognize from Virginia's history. We'll talk politics. They've seen a lot of Virginia history, Republican and Democrat. So make sure you join us 10 o'clock tomorrow morning for the next episode of the Reid Revolution. Hope it's a great day for you.